Good evening and welcome back to Be Rich. Today I have my good friend and nephew Sashwat Swaminathan with us, and we are going to discuss the Belt Road Initiative. Basically, what we are going to find out is how has China got most of these developing nations into a trap. We know for certain two countries, we know definitely there is Pakistan and Sri Lanka, but the Belt Road Initiative has encircled a lot of countries in Africa, and things have got so bad that Chinese are now allowing a bank to go defunct. They are not able to print money. The Chinese economy has slowed down. These ghost cities and infrastructure they have been spending to keep their economy alive is not working, and the Chinese economy seems to be in serious trouble. They have not really interfered with what is happening in Sri Lanka, and India has given more aid to Sri Lanka than what China has in the last 4 months. What has China done, and how is it affecting the world? In fact, the economists said there are 65 countries in the world which owe money to China and to the world markets.
I think it was 100.
It's 100. So I said 65 are dead in serious trouble.
Yeah, serious.
And 100 countries are going to get into serious trouble with China. So let us look at and have a discussion with Sashwat. Sashwat, your turn.
So I want to basically set a foundation on what's happening. So you're spot on about 65 countries which are in serious trouble. Excess of 100 countries have borrowed from China at some level, and out of them about 4 countries or so are okay, and most of the others are either in danger or in the path to danger. And there's a nice Financial Times graphic about this. I think it'll be on the screen. Okay. So first off, I want to start off by asking you, what is the Belt and Road Initiative? How did it all start? What's the idea behind it?
The Chinese wanted to expand their trade across the world.
Right.
So what they wanted to do is they wanted to build belt and road. That is, belt is their railways lines.
Yeah.
And the road is Trans-China, connecting China with Europe, Africa, and rest of Asia
So a
by
Silk Road of sorts.
It's a kind of Silk Road with both railway lines and roads, which would make trading in and out of China very easy. And since China had a lot of foreign reserve,
Right.
and they just wanted to give their people jobs.
So from their trade surplus.
From their trade surplus, they kept lending money to these countries on usurious interest terms to build ports, roads and railway lines, which would in fact benefit Chinese trade. In China, Colombo already had a good working deep harbor port. They built a port called Hambota, in which would be leased to the Chinese. The Pakistan had several assets which were then given away, leased to Chinese, and the
In exchange of financial aid.
in exchange for financial aids. The terms were very usurious. Usurious means interest rates were extremely high. Predatory. And countries like Sri Lanka did not have use for the infrastructure that was being built.
Okay, so
they built roads to nowhere.
Yeah.
And the Chinese were asking them for money. And out of $55 billion, China had to get some $10 or $12 billion. And China was not willing to relent.
Right.
And the airports, the ports and roads were all built using Chinese money. And China also helped the Sri Lankan government militarily to solve these problems.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Pakistan goes, Pakistan's main advantage is its location. The previous Soviet Union, when they invaded Afghanistan, they played the card with America, and the Americans kept feeding Pakistan. When the Americans started demanding more accountability because they had created a nuclear asset and other things, and the threat from Afghanistan receded, they immediately pivoted to China. Because China and India have an adversarial relationship, and Pakistan wanted my enemy's enemy is my friend, and China was embraced. And even today, if Pakistan has not defaulted on its debt, is because China gave them a $2.3 billion rescue loan about 2 weeks back.
Yeah.
Now, what happens in these two countries is happening across the globe is there is a 35 to 40% devaluation in their currency.
Okay, because of interest rates.
Because of default positions. All these countries are not marked in Chinese, these loans are not marked in Chinese renminbi. They are marked in US dollars. And so they have to pay in US dollars.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, and because they are marked in US dollars, these loans have to be serviced in dollars. But the users of these assets will pay in local currencies.
Right.
So the depreciation gap has to be met by this country. Now what has happened is, over last 20 years, it's not only companies, as I have been arguing for so long, even countries have got used to low interest rates. And so they thought they could just keep rolling over the loans, and they never had to repay the
interest
principal. Unfortunately, as this inflation surge has hit, the dollar index has become stronger and stronger, and the money is flowing from the rest of the world into dollars.
Right.
This has made imports. Most of these countries have imports. They have to import fuel and they import some of their food. In case of Sri Lanka, the problem was compounded even more by that stupidity of organic fertilizers and point that he cut taxes beyond a point. So these two and made sure that the COVID pandemic hurt the
Sri Lankans.
Sri Lankan tourism. Tourism, garments, and tea are their exports. Sri Lanka shot itself on the foot, and the macroeconomic conditions were very bad. So their currency has depreciated 30-35%. Same thing happened to Pakistan.
Right.
Pakistan has to import some food. Pakistan has to import all their energy. They subsidize their food. They subsidize their fuel, and there was enormous pressure on Pakistan. Pakistan does not export at all.
Right.
So they have a huge current account deficit. For a size of a country, Pakistan has huge debt, and so it's depending on aid and credit from Saudi,
Right.
UAE and China to survive. Now the Sunuk bonds, which are supposed to be interest free, what now Saudi Arabia is doing, it has taken specific assets in Pakistan as pledge against their loans, and if the Pakistan defaults on these loans, the rental collected, they have pledged a highway, Lahore to Rawalpindi highway. The loans the toll that is collected will be treated as payment for tax or payment of interest, which means that as the rupee depreciates and if Pakistan defaults, these guys will charge more and more. If you read through the terms of the Chinese and the Saudi loans, they are nothing short of usurious.
Right.
So these guys have become a trap for China. And this is true of all. And why did they go to Africa? They went to Africa because they wanted a commodity. Africa is the place where most of the commodities are available.
Yeah.
They wanted a commodity hedge.
Yeah.
So they have trapped most of the
African countries.
African countries. And now this dollar going up, dollar index going up,
Yeah.
is really hurting these countries. This is exactly what has happened.
Okay. And before I move on to the other questions, you had talked about the current account surplus in China being used to fund their capital lending, basically. So this is not a model which we see every day because most countries don't face the situation where China is put in. So what is the other alternative, is this what happened to Japan a few decades earlier?
No. Japan Japan, the big difference between Japan and China is Japan has a pacifist constitution. They cannot have an army. So Japan is not a threat to the world.
Right.
Japan's problem is there was an unrestrained real estate boom funded by banks.
Yeah.
When the real estate bubble burst, the banks burst and the stock market burst. And ever since then, the people have been trying to hoard cash. Their inflation money now has reached 2.5 after 40 years.
Right.
So people never took out cash. People never spent money. There was a deflationary spiral.
Consumption was low.
Consumption was low. People were willing to work for less, and the whole economy kept on contracting. So innovation died. You should understand, before Apple, the most innovative company in the world was Sony. The Japanese company.
Right.
As a kid, Discman, Walkman, all the big TVs, everything came from Japan.
Right.
I have, as a child, have never seen Korean electronics, but there is no big Japanese cell phone manufacturer now.
Today, yes. Yeah.
All that is because of this deflationary spiral. Till the TVs, the washing machines, the radios, everything came from Japan.
That funded their current account surplus.
And
what do they do with that?
I think they are still sitting on that. But whether they are able to, like Mayoshi San is from Japan.
Yeah.
SoftBank is from Japan.
Yeah.
But I think Japan missed the entire computer and the hardware and the software bus because they were so preoccupied in setting their economy right. I believe that this failure in Shanghai is the beginning of the end of the Chinese boom. But that because China is a black box, we don't know what we are getting.
Yeah.
There is going to be a huge deflationary pressure on real estate prices across the globe. It's happening in Japan. It is definitely going to happen in China. And it is happening in India, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And most of the people's wealth effect comes from holding real estate assets.
Wealth effect comes from real estate assets.
Yes, because I think I'm more wealthy.
Right.
Initially, why do you think I felt wealthy? Because my ancestors and my parents had left me some property in central Chennai.
So that persuades you to consume more.
That persuades me to consume more. The moment I realize that I have lesser of wealth and my property is not as wealthy as I think.
Wealth effect works in the opposite way.
The wealth effect works on the opposite side.
So we'll have a deflationary problem as well.
you are facing a deflationary problem. Even before the COVID pandemic hit, if you look at 16 quarters in a row,
Yeah.
growth was declining.
Right.
Then the pandemic really pushed you down. The two growth periods next year, what you looked at is the post-pandemic recovery.
Base effect.
Base effect. India has just got above the pandemic level.
Yeah.
You are not going to grow at 8% next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, so coming down to a subset of what I've already asked you and which you've already touched upon, but I want you to give me a specific answer on this. Does it make sense in certain cases for foreign countries to depend on Saudi and China for financial aid?
They don't have a choice, have they? Because no God. See, we have celebrated democracy. I'm a Democrat. But the problem in democracy is people want immediate consumption. They want immediate gratification.
Yeah.
And they don't want taxation.
Freebies.
They want taxation. They don't want to pay for it. They want immediate gratification. And people believe that the government can print enormous amounts of money. And so politicians who win are people who promise immediate gratification.
Candy shop owners.
Yeah, they promise immediate gratification and they have failed as such in the sense. This is what pushes these politicians to borrow.
So promising free lunches.
Yeah, the exception is Singapore, where Lee Kuan Yew really changed and showed the different things. So Lee Kuan Yew, Deng Xiaoping are people who did things differently, but they were autocrats.
Okay. So I want to give you a few data points which I'm pretty sure you're aware of. So the Chinese have lent a total of $838 billion out to multiple of these projects, and this is not. This doesn't count all the bonds which they have of foreign countries. And in 2021, they negotiated a total of $52 billion. Renegotiated $52 billion out of their $838 billion pool. And in 2019, they had just renegotiated $16 billion.
So they are not willing to postpone their
Interest
receipts or renegotiate on their currency.
Yeah.
They are treating this as a forex reserve. So this is going to really, if a whole lot of people default,
Yeah.
it's not good news for the world. That's why I'm saying most of us are sanguine.
Yeah.
I hope it does not come.
Yeah.
But most of us are sanguine about the risks we are entailing.
And so this, while researching upon this, I saw the similarity of this with the debt crisis of the 80s.
Yes.
So if you could touch upon what Soros did then.
He made a huge pocket of money because what happened is you did not have such global bond markets. So commercial banks were getting cheap money. Commercial banks started lending money to countries like Mexico and even India got into it. Argentina and even India. India had a crisis between 89 to 91. These were commercial loans made by banks to countries.
Right.
And they were getting money cheap. They were marking it to India. These were sovereign debts and they were marking up money.
Yeah.
Okay. In came Volcker and jacked up the interest rates.
He screwed the...
Yeah, he screwed these guys.
Yeah.
The money was not to be made. The rates kept going up. Banks were not able to roll over the debt and the banks needed a bailout. Countries needed bailout.
Yeah.
Everybody needed a bailout.
So something similar could happen.
I don't want it to happen because this is sovereign debt.
So the actual country itself.
On both sides.
Yeah.
On this side, there was a country and there was a commercial bank.
Yes.
Now these are two separate countries.
Oh, China as an entity is lending, not Chinese banks. That's the distinction.
The Chinese banks are nothing but the state banks.
Right.
It's not privately held banks.
Yeah.
In the older crisis, the banks were not owned by the Fed.
Yeah. So finally, coming down to a quick sum up, how do you think a real blow up of the 80s type scale, how would it affect the global economy today?
I think the global economy will collapse. I hope it doesn't.
Depending if this happens.
Yes, and there'll be a big cool down in commodity prices, and we don't know how Putin is going to. So you have to look at with what is happening in Ukraine.
So you can't look at it in isolation.
So looking with isolation, you're already having copper at a 2-year low.
Yeah.
This is the indication that all commodity prices have reached pro-COVID levels.
Right.
There's a big cool off in COVID in commodity prices, and yet inflation is not showing any signs of it coming down.
This is very bad news.
Very bad news.
So that's all I have for you today.
Thank you for watching Be Rich. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell notification. If you do not turn on the bell notification, you will not be notified every time we put out a video. Once again, I thank you for your support for Be Rich. It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, Those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.